that one word when you are in emotionally tense situations, tough conversations, tends to tripwire DEFCON 5 really fast.
Right.
How do you step out a little bit out of emotional brain to have a healthier conversation?
Even if we're not seeing eye to eye, and we lose sight of that so much, I think I want you to change your behavior, but really the first goal is I just want to have a conversation that allows us to connect.
Welcome to the Blended Family Coaching Show, where you'll discover how to move your stepfamily from just surviving to truly thriving.
Grab your headphones and listen in as we share practical, real-life strategies for building healthy bonds,
Understanding the kids' perspective,
romance and partnership,
parenting with great teamwork,
and yes, even co-parenting with a difficult ex.
We're Mike and Kim Anderson, and we believe with the right tools, every step couple can overcome the common challenges of stepfamily life.
Join us for authentic and sometimes comical conversations to discover how you can lead your family with confidence and create the future you really want.
Well, hey there, welcome. We are so excited for you to join us as we are every week here on the Blended Family Coaching Show. And we are super excited to welcome back our friend and colleague, Mark Warren. Now, Mark, you joined us about a year ago where we talked about the stories that we can form in our head, those false narratives, and you gave us some awesome practical ways to navigate through that.
And build more connection in our relationship.
And now, one of the expertise that I've known Mark to have over many years is all around communication. And I got to get introduced to this concept of what Mark calls outlaw words, and that's what we're here to talk about today. Mark, welcome. We're so glad you're with us.
Hi, Mark.
Great to be back with you and your audience.
Yeah, thanks, Mark.
We appreciate it.
We're gonna dive into some nitty gritty and talk about some very specific words that we use or don't use in our conversations. And I wonder a couple things before we dive into that. I want everybody listening to know that we're going to provide a free downloadable cheat sheet for you, and we're going to put a link to that in the show notes. So if you need a cheat sheet after this, because I know Mark is going to fill you with all kinds of information. And if you're not in a place where you can take notes, you're going to want to download that cheat sheet. So you go find the link and download that. But Mark, before we dive in, can you just explain to us what is this concept of outlaw words and why are we even here talking about this today?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Outlaw word, I call them outlaw words because they're very dangerous to use in certain conversations. And let me give you some context for why I call them outlaw words, because they're words you and I can use on a regular basis, provided there's no trigger. It's not a very difficult conversation. I'm not in an emotional state where I'm angry or ticked at you. Normal conversations, you're going to use these words quite commonly. It's when there's a moment or a situation where we have an emotional loaded conversation that we're tempted to sort of use certain words to try to get back at the person or motivate them to disclose why they did something or get them to change. And they end up being very damaging, but they're almost automatic, especially with our upbringing and our backgrounds, to use. So we're gonna call foul flag on these words and try to train our brains to not go to them during these emotional conversations.
That makes a lot of sense. So, when we're in those moments, when we know, hey, this really matters and there's some emotion behind it, whether I'm talking to my spouse or whether I'm talking to my child or whether I'm talking to my stepchild, you're going to give us some very specific words to not use and maybe make some suggestions of what we can do instead. Is that right?
Yes.
Awesome.
And how do you actually make it fun to catch each other in a family using outlaw words? So you train your brain to be alert to them. And I'll give you some ways to do that we did in our own family.
Oh, I love that.
Pretty fun.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. Yeah. Well, you take the reins here, Mark, and guide us through this, and let's go ahead and hop in.
You bet. And let me back up of why these are important to be aware of. And it has to do with two things. One is we operate with, we'll call it a rational brain and an emotional brain in our relationships. And our intention in relationships, especially familiar relationships, family, new family relationship, blended family, our real desire is to connect and be known and have a safe place in our relationships, whether we're parenting, our own bio kids or blended kids, and our new relationship and trying to navigate that. So there's a lot in play. And really the heart is we want to connect, and we feel bad when we tripwire into these really negative conversations, and we walk away with a bad taste in our mouth, and a lot of times wondering, why did I say that, or why did I do that, when it's really the exact opposite of what we want. So that really is behind our relationships. All the stuff we're working through, and all of us are broken and got weird ideas in our minds about ourselves and others.
For sure.
So that's sort of part one. And then part two is human brains are wired to sort of assess what they see and hear really fast and make sense of it. And I mean, really fast.
Right.
And literally, if I see you raise your eyebrow in a conversation, I have to interpret that cue. So human brains are wired. Hey, I got to interpret what I see or what I hear. I could hear you say a word and say, "Hi, Mark," and I hear it and there's no response. Or I hear you say, "Hi, Mark," and I hear you, "Oh, what's with that?" And oh, there you go again. And the catch is our brains get used to seeing cues or hearing cues. And when those cues become repeated, we start to form a story. And that's back to a previous conversation podcast we had about how human brains build stories about the people they love around them. Now, the catch on that is the tripwire. When we move from rational brain to, we'll call it your emotional brain. I like to call it lizard brain. But as soon as you go to emotional brain, you lose the objectivity of being rational and making sense. And there's probably a reason they're responding that way. We go into, I know why you did that. I can't believe you do that. If you really loved me, you would have put the hammer back in the wall. Right. And it's really that moment that creates so many emotional opportunities to blow up a situation or relationship.
Yeah, man, we have had so many of those moments over the last 20 years.
Yeah. And I'm going to say a couple things about that before we talk about outlaw words. Two things. One is familiarity, and I call it the familiarity syndrome. And all that means is, and you and I know this from growing up, if family life, whether you have many siblings or few or none, and interactions with parents or guardians. Familiarity means we get used to each other very fast. Right. And we create a reputation in our head about each other. And we have a reputation for good stuff. And then we have a reputation in our heads about another person, about all the stuff that bugs us about them. They irritate us. And so over time, that familiarity creates a real big problem of not going right into your emotional lizard brain about that person as soon as they tripwire or do a repeated behavior. Very difficult over time. And it happens in work settings also. We jump to those stories, and that's when emotional brain or lizard brain really kicks in. And that's when it gets dangerous. It's dangerous.
Because you're going to lose your objectivity.
Lose objectivity. Now, here's the interesting thing in your world and in my work with counselors and therapists also. Often you and I go to coaching or therapy to help us get unstuck. Right. Hey, we have this habit of yelling at each other and having a short fuse. And good therapist, counselor, a coach helps us sort of walk backwards and sort of re-engineer it. Okay, why are you getting angry? Oh, that's because this happened. And then often we have, maybe 2 or 3, okay, here's what you need to do in those situations in the future. Right. Okay? Here's your checklist. the problem is that's a rational solution to an emotional situation. And if you don't train your brain in the moment when you and I go back to those emotional situations, you cannot for the life of you remember the checklist from the coach or the therapist.
That's right.
And you definitely don't want your partner or spouse or child to remind you of what you should be doing. It's a weird tension.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So training our brain in when we're about to go into lizard brain or that emotional brain because they set us off for whatever reason, that's the trigger point. Yeah. And we can actually get good in those moments of just sort of pausing. But now here's the second part, and this is where it gets dicey because it goes against the grain of what our heart says we should do. And I call it the imposter complex.
Okay.
And what that means is if you and I are living together and I walk right by the kitchen sink full of dirty dishes and you see me walk by and it just fries you. You go, I can't believe, Mark, you in your head, can't believe you walk by that sink. It's right in front of you. And any normal person would see that and realize, hey, just stop and clean dishes and load dishwasher. Now, interestingly, here's the way out of that. I'm going to react to your reaction. As soon as you go emotional or lizard brain, I go to lizard brain to defend myself. I'm going to, typical fight or flight.
Right.
And the more familiar you are, you often want to fight.
Yep.
When in many other situations, you want to just get out of there or shut down.
Sure.
To get out of it, you often have to use a script that feels so dang artificial. It's just unbelievable. Because you and I have trained for years how to respond in those moments emotionally.
Right.
We just go emotional instead of going to a script. And if you can commit to a simple script in those situations, you begin to practice and allow the other person to give you permission to practice. And let me give you an example of a simple script. And it's not hard, but what you have to fight is the imposter complex, which means I feel phony. I feel this is artificial. So let's say you're really ticked at me for not loading those dishes and walking right by them. And I'm ready to react like I normally do. I might, throw out a cuss word or say, well, you don't exactly, keep track of your, car. Your car looks like, a junkyard, and we start, throwing barbs. If I can catch that, I can then go to a script. And in those emotional moments, the simplest script that I often use is just sort of a 4-step script. We mentioned it in a previous podcast, but it's the idea. I pause and I just say, hey, can I ask you about something, or can I talk to you about this situation? It's a brain stop or pause principle. If I ask to talk about something to you, even if it's in the immediate moment, it allows your brain just a moment not to just drive right into lizard brain.
Yeah,
so it'd be as simple as this. Hey, can I pause and just talk to you about the situation that just happened for a moment? Or can I talk to you later if it's not appropriate talking about now?
So instead of just launching in.
Instead of just launching in. And then it's, I noticed, that's your script. I noticed when you saw me walk by, you slammed your hand on the counter and I heard these words, you never care about me. And then the next part of the script is I thought when we talked to the counselor, I thought when you and I talked about this, that when this happens again, we would agree just to pause like we're doing. So I noticed and I thought, notice has to do with what you see in here. I thought was if there was a previous agreement or expectation. And then this is the magic key, and this will tie into your outlaw words. What happened? That's your key. What happened?
So that's that curiosity mindset.
Yeah. And what is an alternative to a very dangerous outlaw word, which is why?
Okay.
And that's our number one word on the list.
Yeah.
And so let me go to now with that idea that, okay, we're normal life. We've been living together and we have one of those moments and I just lose it. By the way, I've been married 41 years and we have those moments still constantly after all these years. Our marriage is tight, tighter than it's ever been.
And you're saying none of that goes away.
It does not go away.
But you're probably better at handling it now.
Well, at least it provides another opportunity to practice.
That's awesome. Yep.
And we get out of lizard brain faster.
Yep.
But it doesn't mean just weird how certain things tripwire you into that emotional brain. So
that's right.
And by the way, I want to get you loaded up front for these outlaw words. When you start to have a tough conversation better with a spouse, partner, one of your kids, especially when they're teenagers, especially if you've got blended stuff in as part of it, when you start using just a simple script, they're going to think you're weird.
Yep.
And not only are they going to think you're weird, they're very suspicious and they're going to go, what the heck are you doing? Because you're going to sound weird.
Right. Right.
And that's the imposter complex. And here's the deal. They're absolutely right. Because to you, it feels weird. It feels artificial. It feels phony.
Yeah.
And this is a very critical nano moment that you'll realize that, man, I've swallowed the bait that I have to feel it to make it be real and true.
Yeah.
And it's actually opposite. I start with truth. Feelings come later. Start with truth.
There we go.
Okay. Yeah.
And here's what I mean. If my wife said, "What? You sound weird. You've never used those words before. What's going on? It feels like you're faking it or artificial." And I'm going to feel out 10 times what they're saying, and it's at that moment I want to give up.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking, you're absolutely right. This feels phony. The therapist said I should say this, but it feels funny, so forget it. We're just going back to normal. Then you have to have your backup script.
Okay.
And your backup script is for you and for them for the imposter complex. And it's simply this. Well, you know what? Here's why I'm using these words. I want to get better at connecting in these kind of situations with you. That's it.
That's powerful.
And I don't know how to do that very well, as you know. So true vulnerability. And so I'm using sort of it feels like a script just so I can get to the place where we can talk because I'm trying to get better at it because I want to connect with you.
It's so positive.
That's great. I love that.
And you're now speaking to truth.
Yeah.
And the words you're saying in the script are true also, even though you don't feel like it doesn't feel natural.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, anytime you're learning a new skill, it doesn't feel natural at first. It's going to be a little bit awkward until you get better and better.
Yeah. And that's the thing about what I love about the way that you teach and some of the things that you teach, Mark, is that communication really is a skill. And if that's true, then that means it can be learned and it can be acquired. Yeah. It doesn't mean that, I'm just good at communication or not good at communication. It's not hardwired necessarily, but it is a skill that we can learn.
We can change how
there's so much hope in that.
Yeah, we can change how we approach conversations, even when they're difficult and emotionally charged.
That's right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Really great. Thanks, Mark. Yeah. This is great. We haven't even got to the outlaw words yet. Well, this is already awesome.
You know what's funny, Mark, is I remember when Mike started coaching with you. He went to you for some coaching. No,
Mark started coaching me. Yeah.
Well,
that's what you meant, right?
Yeah. It goes both ways.
Yeah. Anyway, he started working with you.
Yep.
And he started using scripts with me. And for me, it didn't feel funny or weird. It was really refreshing. That made such a difference in how I responded back to him because he wanted to understand instead of putting me on the spot. Why did you do that? It was help me understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And so for me, it didn't feel weird, even though it was new. It felt really great.
So sometimes then what I'm
Sometimes it
hearing
can
is
be a
sometimes
really
it can be a real
good,
relief.
positive thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially if we've had some really strong negative patterns over a long period of time. Something different sometimes can feel that way. But I also, I mean, back to Mark's point, that imposter complex can be a real thing, because I remember it a little bit differently, where I'm like, okay, you know, feel kind of almost robotic, like, okay, I'm just doing this because Mark told me to do it.
Understand.
So yeah, but what a powerful thing. It's good.
And it can be a place where we turn back because it feels awkward.
Absolutely.
So
a little parenting moment. This is even more important for teenagers because teenagers will call you out because they have a high meter for authenticity.
Sure.
Right.
And if they think you're doing something weird, they're going to call you out.
Yeah.
And that intention script or motive where you say to a teenager, you know what? It may sound a little awkward or unnatural, but it's actually, and now you're back to your motive.
Yeah.
It's because I want to connect with you better. And I'm trying to learn new ways to do that. That's all you have to say.
Yeah.
Love it.
And it dials down their, trying to pin you to the wall. And,
So good. What a great, well, that's like a super good hack. I love it.
Powerful.
Big hack.
Yeah. So good.
Awesome.
And let me just add to that just a little bit. Why is that important? Because we're so geared in our current culture that feelings are the authenticator of truth.
We're so excited to let you know about something brand new we've created just for you.
We've realized that with so many episodes available here on the show, it might feel a bit overwhelming to find the topics that matter most to you. That's why we've created a simple tool for you to receive a personalized playlist focused on your current struggle or your biggest challenge.
That's right. It's called the Blended Family Breakthrough Quiz. You'll answer just a few questions, and based on your responses, we'll email you a curated custom playlist of episodes that are specific to you.
This simple quiz will direct you to the most impactful episodes that pertain to you personally and keep you on track in your journey of discovery, learning, and growth. So, scroll all the way to the bottom of the show notes for this episode and click the link to take the Blended Family Breakthrough Quiz today.
Okay, let's get back to the discussion.
That's so powerful. I love that. Start with truth, feelings come later. So good. So good.
Okay, now let's get these outlaw words.
Yeah, that sounds great. Let's hop in.
Because I'm upset with you about some irritation. And generally it comes down to you didn't do something I was expecting, whether it was formal agreement or not. Sure. I expected you to clean up the dishes and you didn't. And in my head, I expect you to do it. So it bugs me. Or I expect you to pick up your dirty clothes or clean your room. Or you literally did break a commitment to me to pick me up at 4:30 from the dentist and you didn't show up till 5:15. I'm going to be ticked. Or I'm just seeing bad behavior.
Yes.
I see you be disrespectful to one of our kids and really cut them down, and it really sets me off. Usually it's one of those three at the core that sort of gets our emotional brain just dialed up.
Yep.
So here's where the danger of the outlaw words come in. So in those moments, you're fueled up. The natural tendency, because human brains are curious, they want to understand why you did such a stupid thing in their head.
Yep.
And so the common natural response is, why did you do that?
Yeah.
Why are you 45 minutes late? Why
are you 45 minutes late? Why? Yeah. Yep. Now, their motive can be genuine. They can't understand, how did you show up late? I can't put it together. They want you to explain it.
Yeah.
But they don't understand that's not a safe question.
Right. Because so the curiosity is a good thing, but how it's being delivered or presented is shutting the other person down or creating a defensiveness.
Yeah. But if you say why and add a little snarkiness to it, Well, why the heck did you do that?
Yeah.
You've just kicked out any possibility of me giving you some credit for your curiosity.
Right.
It's gone. Funny sidebar. There's actually research where they've tracked certain words. That's where I got these lists from initially and hearing about these. Certain words will trigger emotional defense extremely fast. And the word why is number one on the list.
Wow.
Why did you do that? And I instantly want to defend myself.
Right.
And I'll kick it back on you. Well, why don't you do it? You know,
Yeah.
And then we start blaming.
Why?
Yeah. So that one word, when you are in emotionally tense situations, tough conversations, tends to tripwire a DEFCON 5 really fast.
Right.
Okay.
We need to know that.
And now here's the tricky part. When you and I are trying to get better in our relationships and make better, deeper connections with people we love and care for, we want to explore the whys. We want to know why something didn't happen the way we thought. And so in your brain, this is a weird thing. It's important to keep asking, be curious. I wonder why we got to this point. I wonder what it was. But I just don't want you to say that word out loud.
Right.
So keep the curiosity mindset, but don't say that word out loud.
So we need to replace the why.
Yes.
Yeah. And the simple alternative, there's multiples. I like what you said about Mike using the phrase, help me understand. That's a phrase. It's a good alternative. My natural go-to is what.
Okay.
It's super simple. I can practice what really easy. I can remember it.
Yep.
So let me practice in front of you. So you didn't pick up when you said me from the dentist at 4:30. Right. And I get in the car, it's 5:15. Hey, can I talk to you a minute about the time? You say, sure. I thought we agreed that you're going to pick me up at 4:30. I just looked at my watch. I noticed it was 5:15. What happened?
Yeah. There's the what right there.
There's the what. So if you add a little curiosity, even though you're fuming mad, and you want to throw out a whole bunch of other outlaw words, just start with the what question. Will at least get you usually started to understand, and that gives them a chance to explain.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and you're opening yourself up to hear their explanation,
and really paying attention. Even the way that you practice that out loud, Mark, of ending that with that tone of, "Hey, what happened?" Like you said, with a little curiosity, not simple. What happened or what the heck happened. Like that's going to kill it too. Just because you say the word "what" instead of "why" doesn't guarantee it. If you follow that with a harsh tone or anything like that,
inflection matters.
Yeah.
And again, human brains are wired to see and hear. So I'm listening for tone of voice. And I'm watching for all the nano cues you're giving off on all the words that you're saying and how you're acting.
So we got to have a good poker face.
Oh man, there you go. There you go.
So avoid the outlaw words and hold the poker face. Yeah, that's good.
Now the caveat. That's an easy thing to do, to go what versus why if it's only happened a couple times.
Sure.
It's when it has happened multiple times that it creates sort of the fury in your brain.
Right.
And you're really jumping to conclusions.
Yeah. What you're going to want to do is talk about the pattern, and that gets a little tougher. Yep. But you won't even get to a decent conversation about a pattern of behavior if you've started with why.
Exactly.
That cool?
Yep. It's the launch pad to getting you to be able to have that conversation.
Yeah.
By shifting that why to what in a calm demeanor.
Calm and curious.
Yeah. That's good.
Two other little context things. One is when we're upset, we want them to behave a different way.
Right.
We want them to do what we were expecting, or we want them to have good behavior, not bad behavior, and drop F-bombs all over the place. Or we want them, let's say our teenagers or our spouses or partners, to do what they say. There's something about human integrity and trust that's built around if a person does what they commit to or agree to or make a promise to, there's something about I can trust that person.
Yeah,
I can respect
safety.
that person.
Yeah.
It's built around keeping agreements. It's very deep in the human heart and mind.
Sure.
And so if I repeatedly break that, I want you to do a different behavior. Now, here's the problem. I want you to do a different behavior, and I'm going to let you have it. I think using outlaw words will help motivate you to change your behavior.
Right. If I say the right things here, I can really elicit what I want from you.
Right.
Yeah. And behind most of these outlaw words is trying to use the motive of shame or fear to get you to change your behavior.
Ultimately, that doesn't help either of us.
Let alone, let me throw in the biggie, which is anger. Anger and shame are really key behind this in our relationships because they work. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Sometimes.
they don't, true. But they don't produce safety and trust and respect.
Right. And it can be manipulative, right? We're
Very
trying to motivate them, in a way that really isn't healthy.
Yeah. So that's really what's behind these outlaw words. We want to talk about what went wrong, and we do hope that they will act differently. That's okay.
Sure.
If it's a pattern, then it's going to be a tougher conversation to bring up a pattern that they're doing repeatedly. But if we blow it up front, it's going to create worse.
And ultimately, what we're after in these moments is moving out of that emotional brain or beyond that lizard brain and into the rational brain so that we can have a conversation that allows us to connect. Even if we're not seeing eye to eye, and we lose sight of that so much, I think I want you to change your behavior, but really the first goal is I just want to have a conversation that allows us to connect.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
A productive conversation, not one that's, cycles off into conflict.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So good.
Keep in mind, we've talked about a conversation core versus chore, that people have things they're good at and get energized, and things that are chore they have to do and they tend to be draining. Yeah. Just a little thought here in these kind of tough conversations where you want to use outlaw words. Often they've done something that for them is a chore. It's draining. It's not natural, and it's core for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you naturally clean the dishes in the sink. Right. You can't believe they walked right by and didn't see them.
Right.
And they honestly did walk by and didn't see them. Their motive wasn't to show disrespect to you. It's that they aren't wired. Now, here's the catch. Core chore doesn't excuse behavior, bad behavior in particular. It just helps explain it. That's all.
Right. For understanding.
Yeah.
But that's key for teenagers and parenting. Wiring helps explain stuff. It doesn't excuse behavior.
Right.
Well, this is so great. Let's keep going. What other outlaw words?
First one was why is the most dangerous in these tough conversations versus what? The second word is the word but. And this is what I call, pardon my French, but the crap sandwich praise word.
Yep.
And it's not always, this is an outlaw word, not necessarily in a tough conversation, although it comes in. It's when we're trying to address bad behavior or a broken promise.
Right.
And for many years, we've been taught in management training that if you want to address or critique or criticize something that went wrong, you praise, criticize, praise.
Right.
And it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it's been taught for 25 years that that's good parenting and good management.
Right.
But it's not direct communication.
No.
Right.
And it would sound like this. Kim, you're such an integral part of this team. So appreciate you part of this team. But that presentation sucked that you did at the team meeting. And oh, by the way, thanks for providing the birthday cake for for Mike's birthday. Here's the catch in that: if you heard confused. The word, the human brain when it hears the word "but," it goes into defense mode.
Yeah.
Right.
I have sat in many, many situations with companies where they had to lay somebody off. I was brought in to help them transition after they laid them off. And over, an owner or supervisor or manager says this: "Wow, Mike, your contribution, we're so grateful, but we have to let you go."
Yeah, that's confusing.
But you have left your mark, but in your brain, Mike heard the word "but." I have to let you go. And he's not thinking about anything else.
Right.
By the way, as soon as you hear the word "but," there's no credit for any praise you give before or after.
It's all discounted.
That's right.
All discounted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do we change "but"?
Yeah, the "but," especially in parenting.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in parenting, but also addressing something with a spouse or partner.
Yep.
Is you're back to the script when you're addressing behavior that didn't happen the way you expected. Yeah. Just ask to have the conversation about the behavior. That's all. Yeah. So you don't have to you don't have to be nice and butter them up and then go, "but."
Right.
The habit is, "Hey, can I talk to you about something?" Yes. And then I thought we agreed. What happened there? You're going back to the script.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Alternative word here for "but" would be the word "and." Mm-hmm. And I only give you the alternate word for this one because some of your listeners are feelers.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they care about people they love and live with, and they just can't stand to jump right to the issue.
Sure.
Right. Yep. They want to sugarcoat it.
I lean that way sometimes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it sounds something like this. Hey, Mike, I love you, right? And of course, now they know. And I want to talk to you about what we encountered in your room, because I thought we agreed you were going to clean it up before you left with your friends.
Yeah.
So I bridge into the behavior that didn't happen with the word "and," if I'm giving them an affirmation ahead of time.
Yes.
So I give that as a freebie for you feelers out there. Because sometimes you can't stand it. You got to let them know how much you love them. That's fine. Just don't use the word "but."
And I don't think it's just for us feelers, because I have a funny feeling you're a bit of a feeler as well, Mark.
Yeah, I confess. I am.
I'm a high thinker and I just want the truth. I just want you to be direct and tell me how it is. Stop beating around the bush. And I appreciate that. And so I communicate that way to others, and that's not always great.
Yeah, because Kim's more, she won't necessarily do why, but it'll be well, what happened? Why did, or what did you suck that up for?
Good point. Yeah.
I just want to know.
Yeah.
And by the way, for a thinker, if I use the word "but," it really sets off, oh man, you just bait and switched me right there.
So irritating. Yeah. So irritating.
Yeah. You're trying to manipulate.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. That's good. Good.
Now apply that to your teenagers that are thinkers.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I love you, honey, but you got body odor. We got to talk about that. and the "but" word is extremely a trigger word. So that's for you, especially when you're parenting.
Yeah, you can lose credibility with some people when you use the word "but," because now I don't believe anything you say.
Yeah.
Because you're just giving me the runaround.
Yeah.
It's that powerful.
It is.
Very much. So we're avoiding "why," we're avoiding "but." What else?
Third word is what I call the false apology word. It's the word "if."
Okay.
And it often has good motive, but it doesn't create good connection. And it sounds like this. Let's say I sort of put you on the spot at the dinner table. You're my teenager and the other kids sitting at the table. And I actually yell at you at the table. Well, if you just finish your homework before you headed out, you wouldn't be so behind. Okay. And I see you slump, your eyes drop, your face turns red. And I'm thinking, oh, way to go, Mark. Way to be a great dad. And so you go off to your room, you stomp off to your room, you're mumbling stuff on your head. And I walk in and I try to fix it with this word. You ready? Hey, son. Hey, Mike. Hey, if I offended you at the table, I'm sorry. So when I open an apology, when there's tension or we're in emotional brain, lizard brain,
Yeah.
And I start the apology with if. I've just made you the victim.
Yeah.
I haven't really apologized.
No.
It's like, you're hurt. I hurt you. I said something
Right.
that really hurt you. But if you got a problem with that, it's really your problem. If I hurt you, so I'm sorry. And that is a very devastating apology. And parents often don't even realize they're doing it. And couples often don't realize.
Yeah.
Good motive. I realize I hurt you or did something bad, but I start the apology that way instead of just apologizing with I.
Yeah. Instead of owning
it.
it.
Or excuse me, when.
Yeah.
And it's very simple. These aren't complicated. It would be this. Say, hey, Mike, you're in your room. You're my teenager. Hey, Mike, can I talk to you a minute? Back to your script. And of course, Mike doesn't want to talk to Dad at that moment.
I'm mad at you.
And you grumble something. And all you say is this. Hey, when we were at the dinner table there, I started talking and I raised my voice and I noticed that you turned red. And I said something there that you reacted to. I'm really sorry for that. And I want to understand what I did there that was hurtful.
Yeah. So when is really taking ownership for it, as opposed to, well, hey, if you were hurt, then I'm sorry. But the truth is, I noticed it, and hey, when I saw that happen, I just want you to know I'm sorry for that. That's really
so all you do is you don't have to explain what happened. You say, when I raised my voice, I noticed, and describe what you noticed. You went quiet. You left the room. That's all. That's all you need. That's all you need.
Yeah, you're really taking responsibility for the offense. Instead of kind of trying to skirt it.
Yeah, I love that.
The next word on our outlaw list is a biggie in really difficult conversations.
Okay.
We're a couple. We set each other off. We're angry, and we want to launch in with the word "you." You didn't pick me up. You didn't load the dishwasher. You didn't pick up your clothes.
Right.
We launch into what I call telling what they did wrong instead of asking to have a conversation. And that word "you," now you can use that all the time when it's casual and but in these tough conversations, when you're in emotional brain, if you start the conversation with "you did this" or "you didn't do this," you've just set off DEFCON 5.
You just blew it up before it even got started.
Yeah. That can put people in a very oppositional position.
Especially parenting. Especially when you address a child, you didn't do something, boom, defense. So the alternative word, pretty simple. You go back to I. And the I here is, hey, can I talk to you about something I noticed or I thought we agreed. You go back to the agreement or what you're seeing or hearing. That's all.
Yeah. No, that's good. Back to the script.
And
that's
then help me understand.
And the whole point of this, what we're talking about, is in these moments, how do you step out a little bit out of emotional brain to have a healthier conversation? It's still, there's more to it, but you're not going to blow it up right at the front end.
Exactly. Yeah. That's
so
good.
important.
So good. Wow, that's really powerful. And I love how, as you set this up and you kind of gave us that script, how easily each of these just kind of go right back to that script and just fit right in. That's really powerful, Mark.
So once you practice it, you can get it down.
And you can actually practice right away. By the way, I've had individuals and couples even write it on a card and pull out the card in the moment. And of course, their spouse or partner goes, "What the heck are you doing?" And then you go to your backup script. You know what? I want to have a better conversation. I haven't done this well in the past. You own your stuff. And I'm just using this as sort of a way to get started. You're right back to it. It's okay to actually have a card if you need it.
Sure.
It is. Absolutely. We teach all kinds of different concepts that require some kind of a script with our coaching clients. And we encourage them every time. You got to push through that awkwardness.
Put it on your cell phone if you need to. And the notes in your phone. You always have that with you.
Yeah. So good. So good.
The next three words are extremely dangerous words I call them absolute words that destroy people trying to get better or changing.
Yeah.
And it sounds like this. The 3 outlaw words are always, never, and everybody.
Mm-hmm.
We made these outlaw words in our family, and then we made it a game to catch each other when we're using them. So always means always, but when you're in an emotional state, you always show up late.
Yeah.
You never pick me up on time. They destroy any motivation I have to change, because I might have been on time for the last 3 weeks and it's a new pattern, feeling good. And then that one time I blow it and you go, there you go. You're always late, never on time.
Yeah.
And I check out.
Yeah.
I don't get any credit for 3 weeks of being on time.
Right.
Boom.
Yeah. It feels defeating.
Yeah. This one, this always never was such a personal struggle for me early in our marriage. I threw the always never bombs out in so many of our conflicts. And it was funny. It might have been actually you, Mark, that was helping me learn.
I think that's when you started changing.
To really change that. And I remember even just kind of the time out I would give myself whenever I would hear myself go, oh, you know what, Kim, you never, and then I would literally right in the moment just stop. And I'm kind of a numbers kind of operations guy sometimes. And so I would like try to put a percentage on, oh yeah, well, like 86.4% of the time, this isn't happening. But even just as much as I bumbled through that, the allowing myself to recognize, wow, you use this always never word a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And that is wrecking your ability to figure out how to talk about this stuff with Kim. And it was hard work to try and figure it out and make it different, but so worth the effort.
Yeah. And it's not the truth.
Right.
It's not the truth.
You're projecting something onto someone that isn't true.
Yeah. Because absolute always and absolute never don't really happen in relationships.
And in our family, we said those only apply to God.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there you go.
And so in our family, if somebody in casual interaction, if you heard either of those words, it sounded like this. I'm 15 and I go, I'm one of my sons, and I go, oh, golly, my math teacher, she always gives us 2. And before I could finish the sentence, somebody or all of us at the table would go, always? Or she never gives us enough time to do our homework. She never. And that habit broke the enchantment of using those words.
It calls it out, but in a fun way.
Calls it out.
Even the look on your face is fun as you said that.
I know. Too bad this isn't a video podcast.
Yeah. And then if you're going to outlaw words, you always have to provide an alternative, because the human brain, if it's going to stop something, it needs an alternative to start. Sort of built-in principle of how we're wired.
Yeah.
So always alternate word is often. That's legit. You can say my math teacher often gives us too much homework. That's worth talking about.
Sure.
She seldom gives us enough time to complete our work, not never.
More realistic.
More realistic. And key for blended families, because you're trying to change behavior because you're learning to live with new people.
Right.
And so you want to change for the people you love.
Yeah.
But often you're trying to change something that's a pattern, might be a bad habit, or in your chore area, it's not natural.
Yeah.
And you're making the effort. And then in one of those moments where you set it off and they're irritated, that's when your partner, spouse, or one of your kids goes, you always. And it just destroys motivation to try to change.
Yeah, and it delegitimizes any progress.
Yeah, and it gets even more powerful when it's you and your kids always.
There you go. Oh boy, you pounded
There's the biological divide.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Or even that third word in there that you say it's an absolute is everybody.
Everybody.
And in a blended family scenario, we can hear that all the time, especially, the lots of kids and people moving back and forth between homes, and exes are involved. everybody's against me. Everybody does this to me, and that kind of thing. And again, it not only I think when we get in that mode, I think not only does it really break down communication and it robs the progress that has been made in that other person, but really it reinforces in my own brain something that's not even true, and it sabotages my own thought process.
It keeps you stuck.
And so getting rid of some of these absolutes helps me to think differently as well. And that can be powerful.
Another one we could add there is nobody. Yeah. Nobody ever listens to me. Nobody cares about me.
Yep. That's good.
Yeah. They go hand in hand.
For sure.
And those are absolutes again, and they destroy credibility, and they create suspicion.
Yeah.
It's like, really, everybody is against me, or nobody supports what I think, and I start to question myself or question you. Another outlaw phrase quickly. I'll give you the rest of these right quick. This happens in key relationships. I get set off by something you do that's a pattern. It irritates me, and my first response is, well, that's typical. There you go. Yeah, that's typical. Especially I might be responding to you because you just said, I'm sorry. You realize it's genuine. Well, that's typical. And I'm going to throw in a very dangerous habit, and it's the habit in these emotional situations to use sarcasm.
Oh, yes.
Sarcasm is a destroyer in emotional conversations.
Right.
It's fun when it's in safe conversations and relationships that, play with each other and kid.
Yeah.
But in emotionally charged lizard brain conversations, sarcasm is deadly.
Yeah.
And our lizard brain is really good at sarcasm.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So a statement like that's typical, that's a judgment.
It's a judgment.
Really placing judgment on someone.
Yeah. Sure. And it's really saying you're not going to change. That's typical.
Yeah. That's just
instead of the goal is, hey, you got a pattern here that is we need to talk about.
Yeah.
And you want to make it safe to talk about a pattern, especially when it's not easy for them to change.
Right.
Instead of pointing the finger and that's typical.
Yeah, that's good. There seems to be a pattern. That's a great phrase.
Yeah.
This is a parenting phrase, the next one, and a couples phrase that is also deadly. It's called you should.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, I call this shoulding on each other. You have to listen well, listeners. I said should.
That's right.
But and especially when couples or parents are actually trying to get better at being authentic, so they own a bad behavior, or they blew it, or they didn't keep an agreement, and they're actually pretty open. And then you and I tend to jump into telling mode. Well, you should do it this way. You should have thought about that in the first place. You should have. And as soon as you and I go to you should, boom, you're going to shut
the walls go up.
Yeah. What that statement says to me is you're trying to control me. Very controlling.
Okay, I'll mark that down.
And alternative is back to our script. Okay. Can I make a suggestion? Can I talk to you about that?
Okay.
You go to an ask, because they may not want to know your cool method for doing it your way.
Right.
Yeah. And they may not appreciate you going into fix it mode.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Should is the word you want to make it fun to catch. Even when you're loaded, make an agreement that we're not going to go to the should word in tough conversations. And then it helps you when you're using it. Hey, can I pause? I just heard the word should, and it might kick you out of that.
Right. Yeah. No, that's really good. I might even add to that. I think there's times where, somebody's processing something that's somewhat complex. And I think it even supercharges this in a bad way when you go, well, you should just.
Yeah.
And then give a really simplistic answer. Oh, you should just do this. And all your problems in the world would be solved is kind of what that communicates. And I know when I hear that, especially with that just added on the end, man, my hackles go way up.
Yeah.
I think that can
I
be
like that a lot.
really challenging.
I'm adding that to my
that
list.
makes you automatically believe this person doesn't get it.
Yeah,
They really don't
exactly.
understand. And then up comes the wall,
Yeah.
and communication breaks down.
Relational challenges are rarely a silver bullet issue.
Yes.
You should just do this and everything will be solved. It just isn't going to happen that way.
No.
Yeah. That's
If you can remember, they often go, you should just is coming out of their core. It's often they're good at it. They don't do the bad behavior you're doing.
Right.
So they go to what they do.
Right.
But there's more behind it, and it's not safe now.
It's so much more complex. That's good. What's next?
Next word is a phrase that comes out that I got from Brene Brown, one of my heroes. And in very tough situations or painful situations, we don't extend empathy. We try to give sympathy.
Yeah.
You know, we want to tell them words that will heal or take away their pain.
Yep.
And the common phrase is, well, at least, and we try to create the positive, the silver lining, you know, especially with teenagers and parenting. They're negative or they're depressed, and well, at least you have a home and a room to yourself.
Right.
At least you have food on the table, 3 meals a day.
Yeah.
And in the moment of those emotionally charged situations, that doesn't help.
No, it actually dismisses.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very dismissive.
Yeah. And the recommendation is those when somebody's sharing hurt or pain or even anger is do the emotional script, which is just simply, wow, that sounds hard, or thanks for sharing. That's all you need to say.
Yeah. That's so good.
All you need to say.
So good.
That's very difficult for extroverts.
Yes. I've had to train to do this one. And actually, it was Brene Brown, I think, that challenged me to do that. So good.
Yeah. And related to at least is another common sympathy phrase. Instead of exercising empathy, which is just listening or thanking them that they shared it, the sympathy outlaw phrase is, I know exactly what you're going through. And your motive is really good.
Right.
They're going through something, especially it happens in blended family settings. If you've had blended experience, you want to know, I know exactly what you're going through. Actually, you don't. You can share similar. You could even say, I can imagine that must be really tough.
Right.
But to know, I know exactly, actually is sort of presumption.
Right.
And it triggers in many a really strong resistance.
Yeah. And even if I'm in almost identical circumstances as you are, because I'm a different person, I'm going to experience that circumstance differently. And that means I don't know exactly what you're feeling. I love how, it's, oh man, I can imagine that that's really challenging.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know. Yeah. I love your thought on this, Mark, but sometimes as opposed to something like, I know exactly, or even I can imagine, sometimes we might use something like, hey, I want you to know you're not alone. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, that does communicate. I'm here. I'm a listener. So I think that's legit. The main thing for humans' relationships is the need and desire for empathy is just I have somebody listening. That's all we need. And so to say that is helpful. I often will say that sounds really hard. That's all.
Yeah.
I recommend you pick a short script though, just like that.
Right.
Wow. I want you to know you're not alone. Yeah. Often one of the best scripts I've heard from others is for you to say, thanks for sharing that. That's all you need to say. Wow. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
And then shut up. Shut up.
Yeah.
That's really powerful. And for any of those listening who are like me and you're a recovering fixer, or you want to fix everything that other people are, this one here is really powerful. Allow yourself to not fix the problem and simply show up in those moments. Thank you for sharing that. Wow, that must be really painful. I can't imagine what you might be going through. And like Mark said, the words of wisdom, then shut up. It takes practice and it can be really challenging, but it's so worth the investment in the relationship.
Yeah, because even if you can relate to parts of their story, it doesn't mean you know every detail.
That's
and
right.
you've experienced it in the same way that they have. So you still want to remain in that listening place to understand rather than just saying, oh yeah, I get it, I've been there. That just shuts down the conversation.
Really good.
For couples to see that about listening and extending empathy, I often recommend just go to YouTube and look up It's Not About the Nail.
Oh yeah,
we love that video. Yeah, that's
and it's very helpful because that video, even though it's super humorous, it shows you can practice a script and not feel it at all, but it works.
Absolutely. That's right.
I think there's a Brene Brown video too on not using at least.
Yes, absolutely.
That is really great
too.
Yeah.
So good. We actually we can link to both of those videos in the show notes.
Sure.
Yeah, that's so good. And, just one more thought on this one, as I think about blended couples, and a lot of times couples are in complex blended families. That means that both partners have brought kids from previous relationships into the equation. And it's really easy to make these assumptions that we do know exactly what each other is experiencing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a bio parent and a step parent, just like you are. So if you would just respond to your kids and parent this way, then everything would be fine.
You should get this.
And so I know exactly not only do I know exactly what you're feeling, so to speak, I also know exactly what you should do. And man, those two, you should, and I know exactly, can be real barriers for couples and blended families, because the circumstances say, I do know the answer and I do know exactly what you feel. But the reality of human life is that I don't. I just don't know, because your kids are different than my kids and you're a different person than I am, even though we're in the same family and in the same circumstances. And so we really got to pay attention.
We've all come in with different losses and different baggage and different wounds. So we can't completely understand exactly where each other is at.
Yep. So good. Good stuff, Mark. So I think there's one more on your outlaw words list. Let's
it's fairly similar to why it's when you're explaining why you broke a promise or did some bad behavior, and you go, well, how come? How come you did that?
Yep.
And it's very similar to why it triggers the same thing.
Sure.
And the idea is to go back to your script, describe what you were expecting and what you noticed and what happened versus how come you did that?
Yeah, so good. So good.
Yeah, that sounds a little demanding.
Right.
How come? Like...
or if there's sarcasm in it, as if you're, inept or stupid. Yeah. How come? Like,
what's wrong with you?
Man, Mark, these are so good and to the point and so practical. And I'm excited for this. Like I said earlier, we've put together a free download that you can download a cheat sheet, and it's really simple. I got a list of outlaw words and a list of alternative words that you can use, and go back and think about these scripts that Mark shared with us. And you might radically change your communication and the way that you connect in the midst of those difficult conversations just by putting some of these practices into place.
And, we didn't talk about this, but I'd love to challenge our listeners to think about how they can put this into place in their co-parenting relationships.
With exes, yes.
With exes and those difficult negotiations and conversations. So this can radically change how you are able to cooperate.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that.
Keep them from getting defensive and going into lizard brain.
Yeah, I'm glad you
very powerful.
So good.
Very powerful.
Mark, what a great conversation. We always are so grateful to be able to connect with you. Thank you for taking the time to spend with us on the show today.
You're always a delight.
That's right.
Great to be with you.
Absolutely. Now, if someone wants to reach out to you directly, where should they reach out to you, Mark?
Easiest is through my website, Mark Warren Associates with an S.com, markwarrenassociates.com, or mark@markwarrenassociates.com if you like email.
Perfect. We will link to your website in the show notes. And again, thank you so much.
Fun fact about Mark is he works in an actual windmill.
He does.
So if you reach out to Mark, you're reaching out to a Dutch windmill.
So true.
So good. All right. Well, thanks so much, Mark. And thanks for listening. And that's going to make this episode a wrap.
Until next time.